So I'm going to talk about our LiveView Native development journey. I'm going to exclude the first 10 months of that journey. I started last year right after ElixirConf and played with it, but not much because it was really early. And then I sort of put it aside for a while until the beginning of summer, where I started up again and then made the proposal for this talk. So who am I? I am not affiliated with Dockyard. In spite of the 15 people who have asked me that already, do you work at Dockyard? I'm like, no. Dockyard has been very helpful in letting me have access to the LVN team as much as possible, even though they've all been busy developing their own stuff. So why a LiveView Native app? So after hearing Brian last year, I said, oh, we want to make an iOS app with machine learning, but we needed the camera. So that didn't work because we didn't have camera support. And then we were going to do something for tvOS, but there was no build target last year. And then we said, oh, he mentioned Unity, but then in talking with Brian, it was clear that Unity was going to be a long, long ways off. So then we had a client, or still have a client, who does email to SMS. And if you've ever worked with email to SMS, you know that the carriers can randomly just say, you know, I'm not going to take that email and make it an SMS message today because we're AT&T and that's really hard for us to do. So we started looking at, oh, what if we made a LiveView Native app with notifications? So we needed notifications. We needed to be able to display data because initially we were just going to have it do notifications and no data. And then I said, you know, that's kind of stupid to have an app that doesn't at least mirror our mobile website. And then we need login and session. So here's our journey. I did a 7-day cavalcade during this whole development process, which meant I was entirely offline. There was no connectivity except for 30 seconds while we're in a specific valley that allowed text to come in, but we still couldn't push text out. So the journey that we took is like our journey on horses. It was an uphill ride in the rain and hail while we rode on a horse, and then we faced fearsome adversaries. Which, if you've ever been to New Mexico and you put food out, in about 30 seconds, about 15 chipmunks will converge on your food, and you spend the rest of the day chasing them off. So luckily, they're tiny and not big. So what is the current LVN status from the developer point of view? You can develop in it, as Brooklyn showed. He has minimal LiveView Native experience, and he was able to get his Connect 4 up and running. The OS integration requires Swift or OS knowledge if you're trying to integrate with other things other than just display your page. The startup is relatively simple. May put in the mix tasks to do that, so that's helping a lot. The biggest thing that you had to beware of before now was the versions and the deprecated change code. Remember Brian's big X in his keynote where he said, don't go look at the tutorial that's online because it is woefully, and now even more woefully, out of date. But Brooklyn's going to fix that because he's working on training. So on the LiveView side, you write the same as you do your LiveView, and you use iOS conventions in the iOS render. So notifications require another level of effort to set up, which is Pigeon, and we were crazy enough to say, let's do our notifications first, and then work on our LiveView, and it took like 95% of our time to get notifications working because that was all in the iOS system. So it took forever. If it weren't for Pigeon, we'd never gotten it, but we do have it where Pigeon registers them. The LiveView sends us back the information, what their contact is, and we can send notifications to them. But that is all iOS, except for the Pigeon part that we have on our Elixir end, so we're really not going to talk about that. But if you're doing something, do LiveView Native first, and don't try and do something crazy like notifications. So as we've seen before, we have the LiveView render web. It looks just like any old LiveView. So if we look at the comparison, here's what we did for rendering in Swift. So we basically go from divs to VStacks, HStacks, text and spacers. Now, I don't know iOS at all. I have played with the iOS playground, which is like you make a monster run around a circle with my 8-year-old, and I understand that. But it's sort of like saying, here's this little cute thing that you can program monsters running around, and now go make an app that will function within these confines. So I copied these. I'm sure documentation will come out and help us more. The Apple docs are very different from Hex docs. So I put this in at the last minute because there was an example in the app for chess. If you look at the very first line there, you see that it says render platform ID as Swift UI, which we've seen before, and then we see platform config user interface idiom is watch. So the first line picks up if you've got a watch. The second render is for everything else that's Swift, and then the third render is for your regular live view. So just to show that you can filter out based on if you want something different for watch, for your Mac OS, for your iPad. I don't know if there's a difference in iPad and iPhone, and then for your TV OS. So on the LiveView Native side, the OS-specific details require another level of effort. Like I talked about Pigeon, if you're interested in doing the notifications, go build your LiveView Native app and then send me a text. The UI kits require more LiveView Native for Charts and MapKit. Charts and MapKit are still under development and have sort of been backburnered for a little bit while Dockyard works on stability, but those two kits are out there and pretty far along. Not yet complete features, like we don't have camera access, and we don't have the ability to just slap a SVG in like we do on a web page, which I discovered yesterday when I was going to make an example with an SVG, and I'm like, oh look, it doesn't render. It just takes it and sticks it in the LiveView Native page and doesn't do anything with it. It's just code. So for the content view, we saw from Brooklyn how that looked. I was using this as an example to show what content view looks like and to show you my small change that I had to make the repo for the chess app work. So they've got an automatic that goes to chess.dockyard.com. I had to change it to custom. I forget why they told me I had to do that. And then I could put it on my non-secure URL. So developing a LiveView Native app. The setup is mix LVN install. You need an Apple developer account. And I think Brooklyn covered the setup excellently, so we made sure that we did not overlap in that. The issues are the template HTML, which he mentioned. If you try and generate an app and then run it and nothing shows up in your LVN app, then you need to go to your main templates and strip out the HTML, because what it's doing is it's putting those tags at the beginning and the end, and when it does that, nothing shows up, which Brian, I know, hit, and I hit like last week and didn't realize he was hitting the same thing. You have to watch out for package revisions, but like Brooklyn said, the 0.1 revisions came out Monday, I think. It may have been over the weekend. So now we've actually got package revisions that you can track things against. And then there's this read enabling issue that I'm going to show real quick. If you run into it, just look at the slide deck later on. So if you change your plugin or even start, sometimes it's going to say that your product won't compile because it's not enabled. So what you do is you just click on this little red X, and then it's going to give you this pop-up that says, hey, you've changed these, or you've never enabled them. I don't know why it does this sometimes and not others. So you just say, yeah, just trust everything from Dockyard. Why not? So what do I need to know as an Elixir developer? Which is really the key part of this, is what did we learn as an Elixir developer with no iOS experience to do this? So you need a developer ID and Xcode, which most people probably have Xcode. The developer ID is easy to get. I have no idea what Android requires to get in the Android store, but the Android isn't quite there yet, so somebody else will have to tell us that. Render uses special tags that we showed. For Swift code integration, for notifications, you're going to have to write Swift code. For the camera, you might have to. And for SVG, you might have to. For feature kits like charts and MapKit and maybe camera, then you're just going to include that just like the LiveView Native piece. And use the current versions. Do not use GitHub master. Carson writes too much code too fast, and you're going to be broken all the time. And May. So passing data over the wall, this is a lot of code on this. This is mainly for a reference. But if you need to get code from the back-end side to the front-end side and the front-end side to the back-end side. There's sort of a wall that they can't see over. So if you want to pass code from your iOS side, you do this connect params, and then that connect param will be sent back to your LiveView site, and then you will get connect params to get that data out. If you want to send data from the LiveView side to the LiveView Native Swift side, then you do like this push event persist token, and then you see in the bottom the session will do an on receive of an event of persist token and get that value out. So that was sort of a hurdle for me. Was like, well, how do I get data from iOS to Swift to LiveView and from LiveView to iOS? So that's sort of the round trip of getting data from side to side. Carson pointed this out to me, and part of it came from the I think the chess app. I'm not quite sure. It may have been the chat app. But you can find this code. The second two pieces came directly from the two code repos. But that's what you'll need to look for. So what is the LiveView Native current status? It's currently changing rapidly. But we do have version numbers now on our code, both on the Swift side and on the Phoenix side. So that's a little less of an issue because you know what you're pulling in. Version sync we just talked about. There's the new versioning, so that's helping out a lot. The Swift charts and MapKit are in the pipeline. Right now it supports Elixir 15 and supports the current Phoenix and LiveView. For a while it didn't support LiveView 19, but now it does. And if you want to look at apps that are running or that you can run, look at the ElixirConf demos on GitHub. So the target status. So a target is what you're building for. So the iOS, I would say it's solid. There are some bug parts, but that's what I've been using for the past 2 months and really haven't seen a big issue in terms of that. The Android is a work in progress. I am not an Android developer. I'm less an Android developer than I am an iOS developer. And I'm still waiting for that to come out to see how much different that will be. tvOS, kind of. So there is a branch out there that's hidden and very out of date that works for tvOS. And if you pull it down and you make a couple of changes and you change some of the other repos and you deploy it to a tvOS as opposed to the simulator, it will work. Unity, yeah, I don't see that coming anytime soon. But like Brian said yesterday, they're going to have a LiveView Native core. Any one of us can go and write this Unity target code. So we're going to be brave, and we're going to do a tvOS demo. So let me tell you why this is brave, because we haven't had it work before. And I was like, oh, I can get it to test it out in the hotel room. But the hotel room TVs, even if you connect an HDMI to it, won't let you select that. So they're like hard-coded in the back, and they're glued to the wall, so you can't like hack them. And I didn't have any nerves friends around to sort of say, hey, what should I do to do this? So we are going to try and run an tvOS demo here. Because there is nothing better than to try untested technology. And if you're wondering, you can connect your iPhone up to your development environment using a cable, and it will just know that that device is there. If you're doing tvOS, you have to get in the same room and be close enough and be on the same network and about 15 other things, and then it magically works. So there's a whole bunch of magic in there, where with the phone you just jam it in the computer side. So here is the tvOS. So there is a bug in the tvOS code that you can see that we have no icons for our apps there. You just get little circles. So I know that the first one is the chess app, because I was crazy enough to try and get chess to work on the tvOS. But there's a redirect bug that I've heard is fixed. So it might be working by tomorrow. So, but I have a different app that's beautifully displayed right there. And if we click on it, it starts up. So I want you to see how this looks, because we're going to show the same exact code running on an iPhone simulator so you can see the difference. So this is our start screen. And somebody asked, can you have iOS running at the same time as LVN? This is pure iOS. I had an iOS developer working for us this summer as an intern, and he made this page, which is all iOS, and I have no idea how it works. So he just said, here's this one, and when you click continue, you go to your other one. I said, that's fine. So we're going to click continue, and it spins, and then miraculously, it works today. It didn't work yesterday because I forgot the backend server wasn't running. So here is the app running on tvOS. You can see we have this weird menu at the top. On the top, we have our data, and if you noticed the 2-year bid on the MBS summary, which is, don't worry about that, started out at 100, and then after a while, it updated to 200 to show that it does update the same on tvOS. And then at the bottom, if you look, we have this very horrible bar chart, which comes from the chart module that Carson and team have built. So it's a little hacked. It's very hacked as what its dependencies are, but this is all running on the tvOS. And if you want to see what happens when you go to a different one, which you just slide over to it on this, then this is how an error code looks. So when it fails, you don't get a whole lot of information. I know why it failed, because the other server isn't running for that. But if you go between them, they're all going to be dead. And then when you go back to that one, it's still sitting there and updating. So that is how tvOS looks. So I'm going to switch back and show you the exact same app running on the simulator. So there's my iPhone 14, I think. Yes, iPhone 14. So there's the same app. So you can see it looks kind of different. The tvOS has a little bit of a gray background. You can see it underneath there. And the continue button, for some reason, on the tvOS has a big white square around it. I don't know why that is. That's a UI issue, not a programmer issue. And then if we click continue, we get the same spin, and we get sort of the same information in the background. It's a little narrower. We lose the gray. You see the chart, but you see I haven't done anything to change the template, and they're both using the exact same LiveView Native template, but for tvOS, it put the menu at the top and kind of had it floating. On this one, it's at the bottom, and you have to click it with your hand. So I didn't do any changes there. This one, I can go in and click the second one and get the same error, where on tvOS, I just scroll to the next menu item, and it automatically pulls that up. Oh, and somebody, let me go back to that. So somebody's question was, how can you do different pages? So even here, if you look at our menu at the bottom, we have 4 links, which just go to 4 different LiveView pages. Actually, the first one goes to server number 1, which has the real live data on it that it's sort of pulling from. And then 2, 3, and 4 go to a completely different backend. Now, I don't know if Apple will let you do that. I'm assuming they will, as long as the sites are all HTTPS and all the security stuff, and they don't care where you're pulling from. But that's sort of an example of this app is actually pulling from 2 different backends, one for the data and the chart, and then one for the other stuff, and the other stuff one isn't running right now. So there's just this screenshot. So you can take a screenshot using your simulator, either the simulator or the real life thing. But apparently when you take a screenshot of the tvOS running, it just sort of says, here's how big I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to give you the whole screen. So it was limited usefulness because you can't see anything here other than the sort of thing. So just something to point out. You can take a screenshot. It's just not a screenshot like we would imagine it to be. So what is the future? So stability improvements are coming along, which is what Dockyard has said that they are going to focus on. One of the nice things that I saw in either the chat app or the chess app, I forget because I've looked at both of them so much, is that it's chess, because if we go I should have shown you the chess app on the tvOS. It gets to the first screen. If it can't connect, it keeps the screen, and then it has a nice message that says, I cannot connect to the backend server, which is really nice as opposed to that big, long, scrolly thing of, hey, look, your app crashed, and these things are bad. Android is being worked on actively. I'm hoping the tvOS branch gets merged in sooner rather than later, just so we can work on that and see what crazy things come with that, even if you have to have a tvOS and the simulator doesn't work. The LiveView Native kits, like we talked about, are coming along. You already saw the chart kit working. The chart kit just has a couple of things that need to be changed to make it compatible. The map kit needs a lot more work because Apple has changed their interface. And then Brooklyn is working on a new tutorial, probably in Livebook. So Brooklyn already talked about that. So I'm looking forward to that. So what are the resources? You've seen this a couple times. I had a resource list a month ago that had like 8 items on it. And by the time of the conference, every one of them was outdated. So I have updated this. We have ElixirConf chess and chat programs that you can find. Brooklyn's Mix 4 program. There's the LiveView Native guides that came out earlier this week. And if you want to join the Slack Elixir LiveView Native thing. I'd like to acknowledge Brian Cardarella and the Dockyard LiveView team for all of their help. Remember, I'm a non-Dockyard LVN presenter. And Zane Sino, who is not here, he is a high school student who needed a summer job. And I said, well, Zane, I don't know what you can do, but if you'd like to hack on this project with us, he has no concept of Elixir at all. None. So I run a back end on a server. He writes the front end code, ships it to me, we talk about it. So I would like to thank him for that. So I was going to sing a song because you sung a song. So I was going to sing as LiveView Native as they want to be. The problem is, remember, we're in Florida, and there's Broward County. For all of you young kids, go look up Broward County and see what happened in the 90s. So I have EFF to call if I sung that one, which is Electronic Freedom Foundation. So I was also going to sing, my next choice was Break Stuff, because that sort of was applicable to LiveView Native development, but it's too soon. Rip Fred. And remember our code of conduct, not sure that would fly either. So there was LiveView Nativeville, but that's too soon too with Jimmy Buffett, who died and is very famous here. So I got another song that's called Lose Yourself in LiveView Native. How much time do I have? 10 minutes, okay, so I'm gonna sing it. I'm gonna have to sing fast because it scrolls, but you started it. So we may have to do a duet at some point. And I refrained from doing karaoke the other night. So here we go. Look, if you had one shot, one opportunity to code in LiveView Native, a true odyssey, but every version change, a new calamity, method interfaces shift, it's a coding travesty. Learning Swift convention, man, it's a steep ascent. Docs are MIA, it's like they've all been spent. Missing functionality, I search in discontent. In this rapid development, it's intense. You better code in LiveView Native, grasp the chance. Through the hurdles and changes you advance. Keep your head up, maintain your stance. In the end, it's a struggle to make your dance. You don't give up, keep your vision clear. Though the path is rocky, you have no fear. With each bug fixed, you're getting closer in the world of coding. It's a struggle, it's a persistence, that's your guide. I'm gonna do that again.